This conference will now be recorded.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
On behalf
afternoon.
of good afternoon. On behalf of the World Trade Center Mumbai, this is the Joint Director, Trade Promotion and Marketing. Welcoming all of you at this today's program, the webinar on supporting export sale through COVID-19 crisis. So today's webinar is webinars looking after the impact of COVID-19, this pandemic, on trade and industry. And today we have the experts and government officials from ECGC, Customs and DGFT, and also Mr. Angne, who will help and will address various queries of the participants. So to begin the program, may I request Captain Somesh Bhatt Mumbai to kindly deliver the opening remarks. Captain.
Good afternoon, my friends, ladies and gentlemen. We have an excellent panel to bring us up to date on what the government is doing, what the organizations are going, and under these challenging circumstances where trade is very important, imports and exports are important, and smooth functioning of the economy depends upon that. And under these challenging circumstances, I think this lot, whether it is the customs or the banks or the institutions, they are also the frontline warriors along with the shipping companies, the importers and exporters, and so forth. So let me take this opportunity of individually welcoming all the panelists as well as all the current participants or the people who are on the panel. So now that we are about 5 minutes late, I won't take too much of your time, but may I ask you to go ahead and start. And first in the panel is Mr. Anand Singh. Sir, please come on the scene.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Captain Batra. Hello. And everyone else, please request you to mute your mics. There is a lot of disturbance. Yeah. So today we have Mr. Anand Singh, who is the Deputy General Manager, Western Regional Office of ECGC Limited. And he is overall in charge of the Western Regional Claim Processing Center in Mumbai. 20 years, he has worked in various operational capacities at ECGC branch and regional offices, as well as head office in the country's underwriting department. He is going to give a presentation on the government perspective to Export Credit Agency. And now request Mr. Anand Singh to kindly give your presentation.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Is the presentation visible to all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, since we are talking about exports, it is very practical and important to understand that receiving of a payment in an export transaction is the last leg of the transaction. And unless and until that process is completed, the transaction remains open. So from an ECA's perspective, what is the current situation? How things are going to turn out in the coming months? That I'll try to cover in the presentation, and how at best we can mitigate those risks, how we can capture those risks, and what products are there from ECGC which can be used to mitigate those risks. So I'll just start my presentation with the role of export credit agencies in a country's exports. Now, ECAs are basically policy instruments which are there to support in exports of a country. They are directly or indirectly involved in lending, insurance, and guarantee. And they provide risk protection, credit enhancement facilities, and support is provided to banks, financial institutions. Then under medium and long-term exports, the project exports are supported. And in some countries, both lending and insurance roles are looked after by a single ECA, like for example, USA, where USA Exim is there. But in other countries, the lending and insurance role are separated and are looked after by different agencies. In India, Exim Bank is there for the lending, and insurance ECGC takes care. And of all the insurance, this export trade agencies, there is an association which is called the Bern Union. Now I'll just capture what is the WTO forecast on the world trade due to this COVID-19 crisis. As per their estimates, the world merchandise is likely to increase between 13 to 32% in 2020. Then this trade slump is worse than the financial crisis that the trade faced in 2008 and 9. And it is more likely to affect the value chain links, where the complex chain links are there, where like the raw materials are being sourced from one center, processed at another center, and 2-3 stages are there in processing, and then ultimately exports take place. So all that, in practically in our case at ECGC, in the claims side, what we have seen is that due to this crisis, there were three basically sort of scenarios. One is where the payments were due in the banks. Then there were shipments which are in transit, and similarly orders were there which had to be executed as per the timelines. So all these scenarios we are right now facing at ECGC. Then coming to world trade, the services export is also likely to be highly impacted. Now from ECA's perspective, what this infers, this basically translates into that macro risk or the country risks. They will be more volatile in the coming few months compared to the micro risks. Micro risks is basically the risk of the buyer or the bank making non-payment, and macro risk is failure of the country to honor its commitments. Then in our traditional export centers, the slowdown will be there. Then credit periods will get extended, insolvencies will be on the rise, then trade barriers are also likely to come up. And as an exporter, there will be an apprehension that unless and until the transaction is on advance payment or LC payment terms, I'll not take that particular order. Then all this translates into that alternate supply sources will be opening up. Alternative markets will also be opening up. Then in exports, it is, if we define it, then the movement of goods take place in one leg, and the movement of document takes place in another leg. And due to this, the risk of export insurance is there. In goods, there is a risk of loss or damage, which is covered through marine insurance. And in documentation or receivables, the risk is of exchange risk or the non-payment risk. In exchange risk, it is covered through hedging by the authorized dealer, and payment risk is covered through credit insurance. Now, basically, just to have a uniform understanding on what are the standard terms of payment in an export transaction, there is the advance payment, where payment is received before the shipment. Then there are letters of credit or LC, DP, document against payment or cash against delivery transactions, then document against acceptance, where the goods are released against an undertaking that payment will be made on a credit period basis. Then there are open delivery transactions, where documents are not routed through the banks, they are sent directly to the buyers. And then there are LC open delivery transactions, which are basically an LC will be opened and shipments will be going by air. So in all these transactions, the movement, in some cases, the documents will reach the destination first, goods will reach later, and vice versa. Depending on this, the risk mapping is there. For DP, DA, open delivery, and LC transaction, there is a failure to take delivery of goods, then insolvency of the buyer may be there. Then simply after accepting the goods, non-payment may occur on the due date. Then there may be payment delays, or part payment may be made, full payment may not be realized, and taking delivery without making any payment. And then and the LC opening bank of the LC opening bank. Due to all these reasons, non-payment may occur. Now, export credit insurance is basically to protect from buyer failures or non-payment. It is basically passing on the risk which is there in the balance sheet of the company to the insurer. And this facilitates the export trade on credit basis. Creditworthiness of the buyer can be checked whether the buyer which is placing order on a credit basis is whether its worth is there. Then it facilitates your internal. What is there? Turn off webcam. Sorry. You can enter into new markets, new buyers. It promotes trade on liberal and competitive terms. Then level playing field is provided to our exporters compared to other countries. Now, ECGC is basically its mission is to support the Indian export industry by providing cost-effective insurance and trade-related services. We provide credit risk covers, direct credit risk covers to exporters against non-payment of the buyers. Then credit insurance cover is also provided to banks against the lending that is being done again for the export sector. Then we undertake the assessment of buyers in buyer underwriting. Similarly, country underwriting is also there. And based on our overall experience, we have a list of cases where the non-payment by buyers is there, and we have a list of those buyers on our database, on which if you are having an order from a buyer, the buyer may be new to you, but it may be existing in the ECGC database. So you can check whether the buyer has defaulted in payment to some other exporter or not at some other center. Then we also help in recovery of debts. And we were established on 30th July 1957. It is a 100% Government of India owned company under the administrative control of Ministry of Commerce. And we are regulated by IRDAI, managed by a board of directors comprising of Government of India officials, RBI, commercial banks. And we are operating through 60 branches at almost all major export centers through 5 regional offices. And we have been certified IEEE rating by ICRA. And also we have won the best credit agency award in 2017. And these are the fact sheet for ECGC 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19. You can see that the claim payment and premium income is almost matching, because in 2017-18 it was 103%, and this year's data is yet to be finalized and presented to the board. Once it is finalized, it will be placed on our website, but it is the premium income is lower this side compared to other years. This is the business profile for ECGC, where we provide direct covers to exporters and banks. For banks, we are providing short-term and medium long-term cover, which is for the fund-based and non-fund-based facilities. For the fund-based facilities, packing credit and post-shipment limits are covered. Whatever advances are disbursed to the exporters under packing credit or post-shipment, they are covered under the whole turnover scheme of ECGC. And wherever advance payment guarantees, performance guarantees are there, these are non-fund-based facilities, which for cover for which is also provided. Then we operate, we are the trustee for the Government of India, the National Export Insurance Account, where special schemes like lines of credit and buyer's credit are operated. For exporters, we provide direct cover on the buyer for short-term and medium and long-term. Under short-term, we have declaration-based covers, exposure-based covers, specific shipment covers, consignment exports. Then IT-enabled services policies are there. Basically, we operate on the background of our risk assessment is micro risk, which is buyer risk rating, and macro risk, which is the country risk rating. When we are doing the buyer risk analysis, we look into the financials, industry outlook, business ability, transaction behavior, our own experience, and then there is a buyer specific approval list, which is the defaulter list, you can say, for ECGC. Based on this, we are having more than 4 lakh buyers over a period of 57 to till date. We have more than 4 lakh buyers are there. So if a buyer is defaulting at some center, for example, Mumbai, and then placing an order at Calcutta or Chennai, then that database, the exporter, the buyer may be new, but for ECGC, the buyer is already there existing. So the past adverse transaction history can be shared with the new exporter who is getting the order. based on which you can, if you want to take the order, you can moderate your terms of payment. If the terms of payment are like the existing terms of payment are on DA terms, then you can change it to advance payment or LC or whatever. Then for the country risk rating, we are evaluating the countries on the economic risk evaluation, then political risk evaluation, what is the scene, economic and political trade relations with India, our own experience on that country, whatever exports have gone, how much default is there, and what is the experience of other export trade insurance agencies. Then the forecasting is there. Based on that, the whole country ratings, almost 7 groups are there: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, and D. And the total open cover countries that we are covering are 217. Then based on that, there is a restricted cover group where open covers are not provided, but contractual covers are there for 1 year. And this is RCC Group 1, under which 15 countries are there, and Group 2, 8 countries are there. And this process, country risk rating, is already in place, and it is done on a quarterly basis. For the 31st March, you will find the ratings of all the countries on our website if you go there. This is basically the rating which we do. A1 is the insignificant, then up to D it goes to high risk, under which Sudan, Afghanistan, all these countries will be there in D group. Now these are the risks which are covered under the ECGC policy. Insolvency of the buyer, protracted default, which means that acceptance is there for making the payment, but on the due date the non-payment occurs. Then repudiation is there, failure of the buyer to accept the goods when they arrive at the destination, or even if the export has taken place from India, but due to commodity price fluctuation, the value of the goods that are arriving at the destination has gone down, then the buyer will not honor that commitment. So there may be a situation where he will not accept the payment, the goods, and make the payment, even for DP or CAD transactions. Similarly, for LCs which are opened, insolvency of LC opening bank can be there, or even protected default by LC opening bank can be there. We have just this week only we have cleared a case on LC site basis for Janta Bank, Bangladesh, where a $70,000 LC site LC was there, but the payment has not been made for the last 2 years due to various reasons. The LC opening bank has not honored its commitment, so we have paid the claim and the bank has been placed in the default list. Then LC discrepancy cases are there when the transaction takes place. Ultimately, in an LC transaction also, even if the buyer does not want to pay, the LC opening bank will normally find some discrepancy and dishonor the document. So based on that, the exporter will either have to resell the goods or call back the goods. So whatever losses are there, they are covered. And these are the political risks which are covered on the LC and non-LC transaction. Transfer delays may be there where the buyers have made the payment to their bank, but due to foreign exchange restrictions on the buyer country, the payment may not come for some time. Then contract frustrations are there, due to which the exporter will not be able to make the payment. The goods are ready, but the contract has been frustrated due to occurrence of war, civil war, rebellion, or all these reasons. Then import restrictions may also be placed in the buyer's country when the shipment is in transit or just about to leave. Contract cancellation is there. Due to this, the loss will be there. Then shipment diversion is the most common cause, where due to some problem or congestion at a port, the shipment may be diverted to some other port. The classic example of that is 9/11, when most of the shipment made to US were diverted to some other ports where all the containers were opened and then they were again sent to the buyers. So whatever time that took and whatever losses were there, that were covered by ECGC. And these are the risks which are not covered by ECGC. These are commercial disputes, because it is a dispute, including quality dispute, unless there is a judgment against it. Then there are the causes which are inherent in the nature of goods, like perishable goods are there, marine products are there, but because it is not a credit risk. Then the buyer's failure to obtain necessary import or authorization from authorities in his country, the license is not there, and if the country has banned that particular export, then the import of that goods, then there is a scenario where the goods may be abandoned or have to be called back or have to be resold. Insolvency or default of any agent or the collecting bank. Buyer has made payment to the bank, but the bank has sent it to some other center or has become insolvent. All those risks are not excluded because payment has been made by the buyer. Loss or damage to goods which can be covered by the general insurers. Exchange rate fluctuation is done by authorized dealers, and failures of the exporter to fulfill the contract of exports or any negligence on their part. These are the policy products that we are having. Declaration based policies are there, which are on a whole turnover basis or for a specific transaction or for a specific buyer. Then exposure based policies are there, whole turnover policies, multi buyer exposure policy, or specific buyer wise policies. Then specialized covers for consignment export, software related services, micro exporter policies, and so on. Then specialized transaction like cover to associates, deemed export, merchanting or third country exports, all these can be covered. And this is the most common policy that is opted for by the exporters in the SME sector. It is a shipments comprehensive risk policy. It is a whole turnover policy which offers 90% cover of the loss and 5% no claim bonus is there on every renewal. And premium rate is a function of terms of payment and country rating. Now, these are some of the common things which have to be, whatever policy you are availing, all these points should be noted that the validity of the policy should be there as on the date of the transaction. Maximum liability should not be, should cover the whatever outstanding is there for the company. In case you find that maximum liability is less, then it needs to be enhanced. Then advance premium needs to be paid. E-connectivity needs to be taken to check whether the buyer is in the this BSAL list of ECGC or not. Then credit limit, loss limit or single loss limit on that particular buyer should be sufficient to cover the outstanding. Wherever a buyer is placed in BSAL, cover is uniformly not available, but if the buyer is there in the ECGC BSAL list due to exposure monitoring purposes, due to their negative net worth, then we offer selective cover on those buyers. Shipments which are made to restricted cover countries, there is a separate process. They are not, since the macro risk is there, so separate process has to be followed. And shipment declarations under declaration-based policies, they have to be submitted timely. So in case the declaration is submitted late or due to some reason not submitted, then the cover will become invalid. Now, whenever there is a overdue or non-payment from a buyer, it needs to be reported to ECGC timely, because the role of ECGC starts only when the non-payment is reported. Before that, payment of premium or payment of this remittance of premium, submission of declaration, all that is a procedural part. But actual ECGC role starts only at when the overdue is reported, because then we come into the picture. We write to the buyer asking what are the reasons for non-payment, and then if we have offered cover to other suppliers also, to other exporters, we call for their experience whether non-payment is there, and based on all that information, a collective view is taken whether to place the buyer in BSAL or to continue with the exposures. And when loss is going to occur, then loss minimization steps are most necessary to be taken. First, if there is a non-acceptance of goods, then goods need to be shifted to a bonded warehouse, so that the damage that is charged, it is charged on a monthly basis and not per day basis. Because ultimately, if you are going to resell or re-import the goods, the loss component for damage will be more if the goods have not been shifted to the bonded warehouse. Then if there is a non-payment or overdue, the buyer will not be able to make payment for the further shipment, so it is best to avoid making further shipment. Then if extension and due date is there, or the conversion and payment of terms is there, resale to an alternate buyer or reshipment, or even in case of abandonment of goods, then prior approval of ECGC needs to be taken. Bills have to be noted and paid wherever there is possibility. If there is acceptance of Indian High Commission consulate in the buyer's country for realization of unpaid bills. Then claims have to be lodged timely, which is within 360 days from the due date of payment. And whenever a claim is paid, then recovery action also needs to be taken. We advise on taking the recovery action through debt collecting agencies. And once the case is handed over to the debt collecting agencies, they start the process. And if the claim is paid and the recovery is received, then the recovery charges are deducted, and whatever recovery is there, out of which whatever loss proportion was there, it has to be shared with ECC in the same proportion. And if the recovery is received before payment of claim, then also the same process is followed. And these are some of the don'ts that we advise. That policy should be renewed timely. Whatever timelines are there, they have to be complied, whether it's related to submission of declaration forms or submission of overdue statements. All these timelines are there due to some reasons, and they need to be complied. And whenever there is a non-payment or overdue, please do not make further shipments without informing ECGC. Prior approval of the ECGC needs to be taken for extending any due date or converting a terms of payment or even abandoning of goods. And there is a discretionary facility available up to 25% of gross invoice value. Wherever the loss is less than 25%, the exporter is free to take decision on that. But if the loss is more than 25%, then ECGC approval has to be taken. Then discounts to original buyer are not covered because they are basically part of the contract. And similarly, compromise agreement with the buyer are also not covered because they are part of the original contract. Then if the do not fail to notify or declare that have remained unpaid within the whatever timelines are there, claim has to be lodged within the timeline. And in case recovery is there, then it needs to be shared with ECEC, because once the recovery is shared, then only we can delist the buyer from our BSL so that new exposures can be undertaken on them. For lodgement of claim, the waiting period is normally 4 months from the due date. In case of default cases, for repudiation cases, you can lodge immediately. And for insolvency cases, it is 1 month from the date of debt is debt acknowledgement by the receiver. And they have to be lodged within 360 days from the due date and 40 days from the date of the expiry of policy, whichever is earlier. But normally it is within 360 days from the due date. Form for the claim is, once you ask the branch, they'll provide. And these are the documents that we that have to be submitted with the claim form. This is copy of the order or contract against which the shipment was made, invoice which was drawn, bill of lading or airway bill, the non-payment advice from the foreign bank in case the bill has gone through bank. For direct documents which are sent to the buyer, proof of delivery of goods, acknowledgement of debt by the buyer, original unpaid bill of exchange, protest note, correspondence with the buyer, correspondence on the recovery actions taken with the through DCA, and statement of export made for the last 2 years. And all these documents have to be certified by the bank which has handled the documents. This is the recovery part. Post payment of claim, recovery has to be continued because it is ultimately a country's asset which has gone outside the country. So either the asset has to come back or the payment has to come back. ECGC is simply compensating the loss. So based on that premise, the recovery action has to be continued through DCA or legal action. And whatever recovery is received, legal expenses are first charged, and whatever balance is there, it has to be shared in the same proportion in which the loss was shared. And these are some of the common lapses which we observe while processing claims. Advance premium is not there. Quarterly premium is not timely paid. Shipment declarations are not submitted. Website of ECGC is not checked for whether the country is in restricted cover or the buyer is there in BSL. Then delay in reporting of default or non-payment is there. Due to if one main reason is if the non-payment is not reported timely, then exports to the buyer from other centers are also taking place. We have to keep that in mind. So if there is some delay in reporting to ECGC, by that time, further shipments to the buyer may have gone from other centers. So just to timely inform, if the information is timely made to ECGC, then we can restrict that particular exposure. Then prior approval is not taken in case resale, re-import, amendment is there. Delay in lodgement of claim. And these are advantages of having ECGC cover. So loss cover check. 95%. There is no cost of filing report of default. Waiting period is 4 months. Cost of per buyer application is 500 rupees only. Malus, which is basically the claim to premium ratio, once it reaches 300, then only the premium and the percentage of cover are reduced or increased. In cover to restricted cover countries, which are in other by other insurers which are not covering these restricted cover country exports, we are covering, and the policies can be assigned to banks and FIs. Then there is no non-qualifying loss. Repudiation risk cover is available. LC discrepancy risk cover is available. And these are some of the measures that we have taken to support our policyholders. The timelines for have been extended for the March and April shipments up to 31st May 2020. Similarly, for claims, we have extended it to 30th June. Credit limit application fee has been waived till 30th June. These are all the operational measures that we have taken. Reduction in policy proposal processing fee has been 50% till 30th June. And discretion has been left to exporters to extend the due date of payment by the buyers for shipment made earlier. Whether they want to, if they want to, discretion is there to decide about the shipments that reach, whether to resale, re-import or abandon them. It is left to the exporter. And main is that the claim eligibility period or the waiting period under all policies has been brought down from 4 months to 1 month. Exporters may be considering further shipments to a buyer from whom payments, once the shipments have been made and payments have not been received, then either the bill will be extended or non-payment will occur. If the bill is extended, then the basic condition of cover is that further shipments to the buyer will not be made. But due to these circumstances, we have considered the further orders that are there, and we are providing cover on further shipments, although already there are overdues on them. And similarly, these are the measures, operational measures that we've taken for banks under our export credit insurance for bank ECIB scheme. Packing credit and post-shipment advances. This filing of extension is available till 31st May. Similarly, for default, it is 31st May also extended. And but premium by the bank has to be paid in advance only. And more such steps will be taken once we review the situation, how it proceeds, how the exports take place. Thank you. And whatever information, this was very brief presentation, but more of it is available on our product. If you want more information, then it is available on our website www.ecgc.in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for a wonderful presentation. And as many of the participants had requested for the measures to be taken during the COVID-19 situation, I think the last part of the presentation was wonderfully addressing the needs and the difficulties faced by different exporters in this particular period. We move to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Abhijit Angne. He is the Senior Vice President and Relationship Head, Western Region at the India Factoring and Finance Solution, a part of the FIM Bank Group. He brings with him over 18 years of experience in banking industry, and prior to joining India Factoring team, he has worked in various financial sector entities such as Stanchart Bank and Edelweiss Group. So now I will request Mr. Abhijit Angne to kindly start his presentation.
Yeah, am I audible to you? I have also. Yeah, so I have also
Abhijit,
laptop.
Abhijit, you have to mute one of the device because you have logged in using two devices. One I can see Abhijit A and other one is Abhijit Angne. So you have to, because then appropriately I can give you rights to show the presentation. So is it Abhijit A that you are using for the presentation or Abhijit Angne?
Just one second. I'm just leaving one meeting. Yeah. Am I audible now? I think you can put one only. Now I kept it only one.
Okay.
Abhijit
okay.
A.
Okay. Just give me a minute, Abhijit. You can, yes, you can now share the presentation. Yeah. And please be brief in your presentation because we have DGFT and customs presentations also. Can you
Just one
share
second.
your presentation?
Yeah, sure. Just one sec.
Others are requested to mute their mics, and if you have any questions, please drop in the chat box so that we can take it in the later part.
Have I shared? Yeah, I want to share my screen first.
Abhijit, you can start talking and simultaneously can share the presentation.
Okay, great. Is my screen visible now? Have I shared my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay, I will just proceed then. I think meanwhile, let me also try subsequently on the
Yeah.
presentation also. I think good enough to go. Some technical glitches. My sincere apologies to all of you. I think the right now we know the situation here. The because of COVID-19, we are severely impacted. Okay. Now let me just give the brief about the international trade before I jump on the subject today. The subject I would cover on the factoring also. But in 2019, if you look at it, the global trade has reached to the highest level, which is $18.1 trillion. Okay. Uh, However, now there are three possibilities. What I understand, as I understand from ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, there are one very good possibility that economy may recover it. That can be called as a V-shaped recovery. That can be a faster recovery scenario, wherein the economy can get recover in 3 to 6 months of economic downturn. Okay. However, we can expect if there is a V-shaped recovery, we can expect the fall in global trade by not greater than 11%. Okay, this is the I think the expectations, but the possibility of this V-shaped recovery is little bit lower. Okay, as per the V-shaped recovery, the global trade would reach USD 18 trillion mark by 2020 and 27 trillion by 2028. Okay, so which means we can recover our entire phase whatever we lost by the end of this 2020 if there is a V-shaped recovery. Now let me come back. There is another probability which is a U-shaped recovery, which is the most likely scenario, friends, wherein economic downturn will remain for next 6 to 9 months. Okay, and there'll be fall in overall global trade will be about 21%. Okay, in this scenario, the global trade would again go back to the highest level which we reached in the year of 2019, which is almost 18 trillion, which will reach again that highest level in the year of 2024, which means we'll be end up losing at least 4 years from here onwards, which is the most likely scenario wherein we are expecting there'll be a downturn in economy of 6 to 9 months, and probably there'll be a fall in global trade by 21% in 2020, and we will recover the entire trade by 2024. There's a third possibility, which is the L-shaped recovery, which is a worse scenario wherein I think we can pray to the God that this cannot happen, this should not happen, wherein the virus may reoccur again. Okay, and if the virus may reoccur again, in that case, there might be a 12 months economic downturn expected if there is a L-shaped recovery. Okay, and in this L-shaped recovery, there might be a fall in global trade by at least 30% in 2020. And mind you, friends, if that happens, there'll be a permanent loss of the economy. There cannot be a recovery of that, that permanent loss in such a way that global trade would remain at USD 15 trillion mark by 2028, which means in 2019 we were at 18 trillion. If the L-shaped recovery happens, if there's a long downturn happens at least for 1 year, then the global trade would remain at USD 15 trillion by 2028, which means there is a loss of almost 4 trillion in next 8 odd years. Okay, so this is what a brief background. We also heard that uh, the global economy will at least will uh, contract by at least 3%. But if you look at it, the India per se, there are expectations in 2020 also that we would be growing at least by 1.5%. There is a positive growth. So there are at least, if you look at it in the entire world right now, there are only two countries which all the economists are thinking there'll be a positive growth. One is a China and another one is a India. So there's a high possibility that these two economies will be giving us the positive economic growth, guys. Now let me come back. If this is the case, I think people are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and people are talking about a lot of reforms. I think it's a high time for us to have a reforms in financial world also. Okay. So here, what am I trying to say? I think I'll let me just quickly introduce to you. So I am part of India Factoring team. Okay, it is owned by FinBank, which is based out of Malta, Europe. FinBank has assets of almost $1.9 billion, which is subsequently owned by Kipco Group based out of Kuwait. It's a sovereign-based group. They have assets of almost $38.9 billion. So Kipco Group has various assets. They have an investment in banks like Banca IFFS. They have an investment in banks like Burgan Bank. They have an investment in bank like FinBank. So FinBank is our immediate parent. FinBank has a various assets. They have something in Greece. They have something in Brazil. They have something in UK. They have something in Vietnam. They have something in India. Obvious reason why India, because there is a lot of manufacturing momentum happening in India. Now, what we do basically, so we are into a complete trade boutique bank. So our FinBank is a trade boutique bank, and we do completely unsecured trade structure, which is the need of the hour. So if I ask you, I think if I ask you all the exporters right now, whenever they go and approach any banker, the first there are a lot of hindrances. There are a lot of hindrances in terms of bank may ask you, give me a collateral and all those. Let me give you a brief, one nice case study of one of my client. This is one of the listed company based out of Bombay, having plant at Kolhapur. They are into solar panel manufacturing, and last 3 years, I think, effectively from 2017 onwards, they were knocking the door. One of the large buyer by the name Vestas, based out of US, and they were continuous meetings with those Vestas by the promoter, by the CEO, by the director, that you please give us the orders. But in last 3 years, they never got an order. In the beginning of 2000, end of 2019, okay, and in the beginning of 2020, they suddenly got an order of $2 million, friends. And this guy was very, very happy. This company was very, very happy. They came down to Bombay. They came and had a meeting with the PSU banks. Okay, I will not disclose the name of the bank. They said that after long efforts, friends, I got this contract of almost $2 million. Bank said, we are very happy that you got a contract of $2 million. So he said that I need a financier. Bank said that if you want a $1 million kind of limits, you have to give me at least 150% or at least 125% of your collateral. Client said that I don't have any collateral. I given everything to you, including my plant, machinery, my own flats also. Bank said if no collateral is there, at least give me a bank guarantee, financial bank guarantee. Okay. Customer said that, I don't have any parent group. I won't be in a position to arrange the financial bank guarantee also. But the dilemma was that after a long time, customer said that I got this contract. At any given point in time, we can't afford to lose this contract. This is a golden opportunity of my life. The same customer has come to me and has spoken to me that, we got a contract from buyer Vestas, and he said that I need a lines. Okay, I need a lines at least to cover this, the contract of $2 million. The first hurdle was he was not having collateral. Okay, still we gone ahead and done the financing to this candidate. So whatever structures we do, friends, 99% of our structures would be without collateral. Okay. Secondly, I won't be as a group, we won't be creating any charge on your current assets. So we don't require any NOC from your existing banker also. We don't require there is a special dispensation given by the RBI that there is no NOC required from the existing banker. Now, another benefit of this particular loan, as I said, there is no collateral requirement also. Now, the most important aspect, what I do here is similarly a replication of the factoring happens in UK or factoring happens in Hong Kong or Singapore. We do a two-factor model kind of approach here. So what do I mean by this two-factor model? So whatever we do, it's a without recourse factoring, which means if tomorrow buyer defaults, I will not go back to the client. I will go back to the insurance company. So it's an insurance bank lending, my dear friends. So if there is a default from a buyer, I will not go to the client. I will not go to the exporter. I will rather go to an insurance company to recover this money. So which means since it is a without recourse kind of facilities, it will not appear on your balance sheet also. Okay. Customer became so happy and we started our first transaction beginning of 2020. Believe me, guys, why he got this 2 million contract? Because of the US-China trade war. There were almost 15% import duties being imposed by United States that point in time. And Vestas was very clear that he was looking out various options because earlier all the procurement used to happen from China. And they given their first order to our customer having a plant based out of Kolhapur. May I request others to keep your mics on mute mode, please? So now he has done the first shipment and the Vesta has become so happy. He given the order of 2 million and just 3 months ago, again this customer came down and met us. He said that after seeing the track record of 6 months, now Vestas has given us further orders monthly 15 crores, which means now the customer is having orders worth 180 crores. And now the customer having a requirement of instead of $1 million, $5 million.
You're
So we
not
are not such
visible to us.
bankers. Yeah, is it audible now?
You are not visible. Somebody else video is showing. Please,
Abhijit,
organizer, please check and deactivate his video.
so Mr. Sanjay Mantri, please keep quiet. Let the speaker continue his presentation.
Okay. So,
Abhijit, your webcam is not there, but we can very well hear you.
okay, I am trying to share my camera also, but I am not able to. It is blocking me to share the cameras. But I think I have no choice, but I need to proceed on this. I'm extremely sorry for this. So now the same customer came to us, and now he started asking that now I got an order of 180 crores, and now we are very much thankful that we begin our first journey with $1 million limits. Now you have to offer me $5 million limits. Friends will be surprised. Today I'm very happy and I supported this exports from India to USA and we have granted within a span of 9 months of onboarding the client $5 million limits to the same client. And now as a group, he's targeting annual turnover of 180 crores. I neither asked for any collaterals. I neither asked for any NOC from his existing banker. I neither asked for having a charge on his current assets. I neither asked for any pari passus. And friends, this again, a best part is this is again a insurance backed lending, which means you can imagine since it is an insurance backed lending, the advantage of this, if tomorrow buyer defaults, I will not go back to the client, I will go back to the insurance companies. I'll give you friends one more example now. Some of our customers, there's a large buyer based out of Europe. And this buyer I'm talking about having a net worth of more than $1 billion, having a risk rating of almost BB rated client. And that buyer name is Marce Gaglia based out of Europe, Italy. Now the problem was there was no question about his liquidity, nothing was there, absolutely neat and clean. Now, whomsoever, there were very few customers have availed the factoring because most of the customers do not understand what exactly the export factoring is. Now, most of those customers have availed the traditional banking finance friends. Now, what happened in this case? Whomsoever have not availed the factoring, the pre-shipment, they ship the goods to Marce Gaglia, but in Italy, you know the position because of the COVID-19. Forget about customer office. All the banks are closed. How will the customer will remit the funds? Now, what will happen in banking scenario? The bankers will go and attack the customer's collateral. Okay. However, in this case, I don't have any collateral. Okay. So because the pre-shipment becomes overdue for 90 days, okay, bankers will not wait. They will go and attack the collaterals. But this is the clear-cut situation right now because of the COVID-19. Over there, factoring come into picture. In case of normal banking facilities, bankers are attacking their collaterals. But in this case, what we are doing, we are having multiple options. We can extend the tenure or we can again go back to the insurance and we can reclaim the entire money. So this is how the difference, guys. Nobody's aware in this pandemic situation what should be the difference. Okay, what should be the ideal way forward possibilities. Even if this COVID-19, the buyer is not able to make the payment, but we are supporting the client. we are ensuring that we are lodging the claims and we are bringing back the money. Clients are so happy that had it been this would have been a normal traditional finance, this wouldn't have been ever possible. The case was very clear. The buyer, there was no problem as far as liquidity is concerned, but there was a genuine case wherein इटली में all of you are aware कि वहां पे कस्टमर का ऑफिस छोड़िए बैंक भी सब कुछ क्लोज है and they are not able to make any payment to us. This is how the factoring will help us. Now there is another benefit of factoring of two-factor model, that we got a sample of ICC, International Chamber of Commerce. There is a sample size of almost $18 billion supply chain finance, factoring finance. And they said that whomsoever has done the factoring through ICC, okay, the default rate, friends, is only 0.48%. Now, why is it so that default rate is so low? Let us presume that there is one very big buyer based out of Europe, and they are having multiple vendors, say 10 vendors from India. 2 vendors are doing factoring, rest 8 other vendors are doing non-factoring. Let me ask you, and I can ask you a genuine question to all of you. If there is something going wrong with the buyer, in which case he will do the first default? The answer is he will do the first default wherever there is no factoring. Because if you do the first default in the factoring cases, since any default happens, FCI is a regulator here, they highlight immediately to all the factoring companies. So my dear friends, we get a live advisory. Now what most of the exporters do, while doing the exports, they generally go to the google.com, they go for a DNB, but these are all post-facto reports, my dear friends. These are never live reports. Like ILFS, everybody was very much clear that rating of the buyer was AA rated, but all of a sudden, ILFS of AA rated has directly come on the road. Since it is a two-factor model, any default by a buyer, maybe a factoring transaction happening for that buyer from Australia, it gets highlighted to all the factoring agencies across the globe. So this is another big advantage for factoring, that we are getting a live advisory on the buyer. Since we are having a corresponding relationship with more than 80 countries, the particular import factor will be in the best position to give us the absolute idea about the buyer appetite, about a buyer financial risk. This will not be ever possible in the traditional finance, which means in a factoring case, we are more having a proactive kind of approach, but in traditional banking finance, it's more of a reactive kind of approach. So in proactive approach, we'll always be in a position, because end of the day, I'm also lending you the unsecured finance. Okay, so I'll be rather rather worried about my own situation also. So I'll be doubly ensure that what is the health of the buyer. So I'll be keep on giving you live advisory on the buyer. This is another big advantage of the factoring. Another big advantage of the export without recourse factoring is, since it is a without recourse, friends, this loan will not appear on your balance sheet. Most of those exporters, we are having some listed entities also. We are having a listed entities like Tata's. We are having some listed entities like Arvind also working with us. Now, why are they approaching us? The reason is very clear, because this loan is not going to appear on the balance sheet. This loan will be appearing outside the balance sheet. Moment you discount the bills, this loan will appear it as a cash, which means this loan having another advantage, that this will be not only working as a loan, but this loan will deleverage your entire balance sheet. This is the big advantage for all the listed entities, or this is the big advantage for all the exporters, those who are looking for a private equity down the line, or maybe JV down the line, and all the companies those who want to create value to their investors by deleveraging this balance sheet. So which means this is the only one of those rarest of the rarest product wherein the funding is given, but this funding is not appearing on your balance sheet. This funding is appearing as a cash on your balance sheet. So moment you discount the liability, discount these bills, the liability from your balance sheet gets shifted from your balance sheet to my balance sheet. So these are the various advantages of factoring, and I'll be more than happy that I'm of course we are nudging around to RBI also, we are nudging around to IDA also, that you should allow such kind of products and such kind of propositions for domestic factoring also, so we can have a without recourse in domestic transactions also. So these are the products which is the need of the hour. Okay, there is another benefit of this factoring here. If the import factor, okay, is based out of that country, he will be also helping on collection also, which means moment you discount the bill, the collection will be also done by from our side. So it is a complete end-to-end transactional benefits which will be given to you guys by India Factoring team. Now, another big advantage of if you're doing the factoring through India Factoring, we are the only factoring company today in India. We are the number one in India. We are the number one export factors in India, number 4 in Asia, and number 11 in the world. We are the only factoring company. The RBI has given us the AD license to us. We are having a AD category 3 license to us. So there are only 3 companies having this AD3 licenses currently. One is a SBI Factors, one is a India Factoring. Okay. However, if you see it, that if you look at it, the SBI Factors currently is not active on the export factoring, and another one is Exim Bank. Of course, Exim Bank, we are also having the types. So because of the having a 83 license, I'll be giving you completely end-to-end export management treatment, which means you can put my AD code, our AD code on your shipping bills. So likewise, like a Kotak Bank or HDFC Bank, I can also issue the EBRCs also. Okay, so that is another big benefit for a companies wherein I'll be not only funding, but I'll be also ensuring that I'll be issuing the EBRCs also to you guys. So you can approach for a IMEI benefits from a customs basis this EBRCs to you guys. So there are some listed entities wherein on the export side, we are discounting 100% of the entire bill. This is again a very, very unique proposition what we are doing. And we are issuing the EBRCs on day one. We are not awaiting for this EBRCs to get generated after 90 days of receipt of payment. We are issuing these EBRCs to some of those large clients on day one itself. So which means, look at the power of this product. I'm not only financing which is without collateral, without having any charge on current assets. This is again not a traditional finance, it's an insurance back. Even if there is a default from a buyer, I will not go back to the seller. I will go back to the insurance companies. Even if there is a liquidity is fine, and if there is an intentional default from a buyer, then also I will not come back to the seller. Only and only in case of there is a fraud from your side, from an exporter side, this facility will become recourse. Because if there is a fraud, I think no insurance can stand tall. And as I said, that most important thing, I will be also giving the live advisory on the buyer, that what is happening for the buyer. Even if the COVID-19 kind of scenario is there, I think most of those packing credits are, wherever they are available through bankers, are becoming NPS today. But our treatment is something else, guys. Our treatment is not like what the traditional banking approach is there. Our treatment is more of a, most of those banks will be always offering the balance sheet based approach. They'll be always looking out your balance sheet. कि आपका 31st March में balance sheet कैसा है? We'll rather look at for order based approach. कि आपके पास orders कैसे है? How is the buyer? How strong is the buyer? And how much limits we can provide it to you basis these orders and basis your past track record. Again, apart from this, since I'm a AD bank, I'll be also issuing the EBRCs on day one itself. So some of those clients, if there is 100%, I can do the discounting. So if there is a bill of 100, I can upfront discount up to the 100%. We can start up maybe with 90% also. So since I'm having a 83 banking license, I can issue the EBRCs on my own. So just to sum it up, the difference between the factoring and the banks. In the bank, the receivables are purchased. In factoring, the receivables are purchased, receivables are assigned, but 100% of the time, these receivables are hypothecated in bank. In the bank, it will be always a collateral back structure. They will always insist upon 100% collateral, 150% of the collateral. In export factoring, it is 0% collateral. So it is a unsecured kind of facilities for the exporters. The bank, the limits will appear on your balance sheet. In the factoring case, the limit will not appear on the balance sheet. It is an off balance sheet item. In the bank, receivable will remain as a debtors, which means you are selling the goods and receivable will remain as a debtors. But in the factoring case, the receivable will get converted into cash. Okay, the bank limit will be always based out on the overall your balance sheet. The factoring limit will be always based out on your future orders and not on the balance sheet. Balance sheet will be just giving us the approx picture of the overall health of the supplier, but the overall limit enhancement, everything will be done on the order base, not on the balance sheet base. In the bank finance, this is primarily happens based on the client credit worthiness, which is exporter's credit worthiness. But trust me, friends, in export factoring, what we do client performance of goods and debtor credit worthiness. So rather, we are not depending on client's credit worthiness. We are also we are depending on debtor credit worthiness and the client performance. If the client performance is good, we can keep on enhancing our limits. In banks, there is nothing called a collection service, but here in factoring, we'll be providing the collection services also. In the bank, there'll be penal interest also. Most of the time, your payment will never come on time on 98 days. Okay. But in factoring, there is no question of penal interest if it is a without recourse factoring. Reason being, the entire receivables, the entire liabilities change from your balance sheet to our balance sheet. So there is no question of penal interest. Some of those banks are heavily charging you some penal interest to the tune of 12%, 13%, 18% on the export receivable which are delayed. In banks, it's a more of a client concentration approach, but in factoring, it's more of a buyer concentration kind of approach. So there's a huge difference what a traditional banking finance happens and what a trade structure finance happens. So if we want to become a Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think there is a sizable improvement required. There is a sizable innovation required in the finance. What we are doing is we are still 95% of the Indian banking finance is currently is still a traditional banking finance. People are still lending money to OD, CCs, and there are a lot of frauds happening. If I look at it in RBI side, if I look at the numbers, there are frauds to the tune of 57,000 crore in the year of 2018 and almost 64,000 crore in 2019. So that clearly suggests that what kind of frauds are happening. I think it's a high time for banks also to come down with such kind of innovative products. What is happening in say developed countries, what is happening in say Hong Kong or Singapore? Why can't we give such kind of facilities to our exporters so that our exporters can be competing, okay, in very I think that competition will be a fierce competition with buyers, vendors like from China or maybe competitors from China or maybe from Vietnam. But I think it's a high time for all the regulators right now to look at and innovate and bring such kind of structured trade finance lendings like export factoring. There are various structured trade finance lendings what our FinBank does. We also do some of the domestic factoring also. However, domestic factoring, as I said, that our regulators have not given us the permission. So we are doing a recourse finance right now.
Abhijit request you to finish quickly now because we are already over the time.
Sure. So I think these are the quick pointers which I highlighted to all the stakeholders. I'm very glad that some of those officials from customs are also here. We would like to have a synergy with custom official also, wherein we can also have some data from their side and we can ask some approach some genuine exporters, wherein we can ask we can also look at that the exporters say exporting it to some of those buyers, wherein we have a comfort and we can go ahead and lend such kind of innovative products to them also, and that can be so beneficial to all the exporters in this cutthroat competition, and they can overcome these challenges in this COVID-19. So I'm very much sure that as a India, I think it's a time that of course everybody is positive about the overall momentum in India because there's a high possibility that there's a bounce in this economy. So likewise, I think it's a time that our regulators like RBI and others should look at and promote such kind of innovative trade finance products to all our exporters. So this is from my side. Thank you very much. And again, once again, let me apologize that there was a technical glitches that I couldn't share my presentation, but I will share this presentation with the committee members. And I'm requesting the organizers to share this presentation to all the exporters from our side. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you for a wonderful presentation, and request you to share the presentation so that we can send to all the participants present today.
Sure.
Now
Sure.
we move to our next speakers. Yeah, thank you. Our next speakers are from DGFT. We have Mr. Sambhaji Chavan, the Joint Director at DGFT office in Mumbai, and Dr. Diliraj Dabole, who is the Deputy Director at the DGFT office in Mumbai. Mr. Sambhaji Chavan has over 12 years of administrative experience in DGFT and has served in various offices, including in Surat and Nagpur. And he is today with us with his colleague, Dr. Diliraj Dabole. So I request Mr. Chavan and Dr. Dabole to kindly give you a presentation.
Hello.
Yes, Sambhaji sir, we can hear you. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Abhijit,
Good afternoon, friends.
request you to now close your presentation. Yes, Sambhaji sir.
Good afternoon, friends. First of all, I would like to thank Team WTC and other organizers for the session. Friends, as we know, situation is quite unprecedented, and the challenges we are facing are very tough. Under these present circumstances, uh, being the one of the frontier agencies that looks after the issues of exporter importers, our emphasis has been at rendering services as easily and as conveniently to the exporter and importers. Since we are running short of time, I will share my presentation, but I will give the quick recap of all those initiatives which BJP has taken on policy fronts and on the procedural fronts to resolve the exporters and importers issues during this period in which um, we know there is absolutely no scope for the physical movement of the most of the peoples. In this regard, as we know, there are several kinds of licenses, operations, scripts which our office issues. In this regard, briefly, uh, we have issued more than 3,000 MAS scripts, almost 700 ROSCTL scripts, and simultaneously we have processed several manual MEIS scripts. Same way, advanced authorizations and EPCG authorizations which are issued for the duty-free import of raw material and capital goods. We are processing. Our staff is regularly going, though at a very skeletal strength. In the lockdown period till now, we have issued almost 400 advanced authorization, around 100 EPCG authorization. So we are tracking down those issues and trying to resolve this. Also, we are amending the ordinance authorization, CPC authorization in case of revalidation, UP extension, if there is some supporting manufacturer to be added, or any kind of modification which is required. So coming to the this is where the procedural initiatives and efforts we are taking at our office level. Coming to the policy perspective, as we know, this policy was a new policy was to be announced on this 1st April, but under this situation, the foreign trade policy has been extended to 31st March 2021 by the notification number 57. Simultaneously, the handbook of procedure has been also extended by public notice number 67. Same way, the deadlines for filing the applications of several applications have been extended. In case of MEIS, the deadline has been extended. Same way, MEIS scheme has been extended up to 31st March also. And while coming to the SEIS scheme, the rates of year 1920 has been it has been not announced, so the date has been extended up to 31st December. Same way, for status holder, these certificates which are valid
लेके
have
आएगा
been
मैं लेके आता हूँ कुछ लेगा
up
उसको
to March end, next March end. Same way, advance authorization and EPCG authorizations which were expiring between this February to July and has been extended by 6 months. This is also DFI where validity of import expiring between 1st February to 31st July has been extended by automatically extended by for 6 months. Same way, last date for filing of online applications for ROCTL, ROSCTL for shipping bills with LEO from 7th March 2019 to 31st December 2019 has been extended up to 31st December of this year. Same way, there were several relaxations for the regulations of EPCG case in terms of EOP extension, in terms of block extension, in terms of submission of installation certificates. This also has been extended up to 31st March of 2021. Coming to steel import monitoring system, the validity of automatic registration number under SIMS for import under Chapter 72, 73, 86 has been extended by 75 days. Same way, there were several products for which policy decisions have been changed. And as you know, recently, regarding the personal protection equipments, original notification was issued on 31st January and 8th of February, but this has been modified to allow some masks by the notification number 16th of this May. Same way, expert policy on specific API and formulation have been changed by notification number 50, policy number 34. Same way, the online module for certificate of origin has been operated for has been started, and you can visit our website to know more details. In this electronic filing and issuance of preferential certificate of origin for India's exports under various FTAs and PTAs with effect from 7th April has been it is functioning now. To further this initiative and facilitation in light of current crisis, the preferential certificate of origin of exports to various other countries under FTAs, PTAs is being issued on online platform. These are for ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement, India-Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, SAARC Preferential Trading Agreement, SAFTA, Asia Pacific Trade Agreement, India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. So in nutshell, there are several policy measures have been taken to either give more incentives or to extend incentives or to extend the existing certificates or the relaxations. So and I won't. I think Mr. Pankaj Chadha is speaking, please. And also simultaneously for transport and marketing assistance schemes for specified agricultural products, last date for refund of claims for quarter ending 31st March 2019 and 30 June 2019 will be 13 September 2020. So there are several relaxation in deadlines. I will share my detailed representation with Anil. Anil will share with each one of you. And since I have to attend office for processing of a few other applications, my colleague will be present for the question and answer section. Thank you very much, Anil.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your time and helping the participants understand and know various schemes of the DGFT and the policy measures. And thank you for having Dr. Dabole with us, who can answer the queries of other participants. And now with this, we move to Speaker Mr. Ved Prakash Singh, the Joint Commissioner CGST and Central Excise Raigad Appeals under Mumbai Zone. He worked in the Customs Department in Kolkata, Pune, Mumbai, Nhava Sheva, Air Cargo, SIPS, etc. and was also the member of the committee formed at Nhava Sheva in 2005 to work on the proposed RMS implementation in customs. He has wide experience in law, rules, and procedures related to import and export. So, may I now request Mr. Ved Prakash Singh to kindly present your remarks to the audience. Again, Mr. Singh is not able to share his webcam, so he would be talking. All others are requested to mute their mics, and the questions you can drop into the chat box, which we can take it later on. Mr. Singh, please.
Yeah, good evening, friends. First of all, I would like to thank WTC team and Mr. Keruvilla for inviting me to this wonderful webinar. Am I audible?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Anil?
Yes, sir. Very clearly, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my camera is not working. So, but anyway, I'll continue this thing. So, my topic is basically the customs issues. I have worked in customs, so I know, and I'm well conversant. And everybody is facing this tough time, due to COVID-19. But anyhow, the government has taken steps to reduce this all problems. So I have listed basically 10 issues related with the customs, which will deal with the import and export both. So because the time is short, so I'll tell you just in brief. The first number one step is automated customs clearance system. As you know that we have EDI system where just to reduce this human interface and to reduce the transaction time, government has already taken before this COVID. But after COVID, we have taken some other steps, like we have reduced this manual signing of out of charge, bill of entry copy and gate pass. Now this is possible through system only. The message will go to the custodian, CFS, and they will deliver the goods. And other things, online query module, e-Sanchit, web-based goods registration, electronic processing of licenses issued by the DGFT, machine release of the goods. These are the various steps which are available in the EDI system. So to reduce the human interface, various agencies, other like government agencies, ADC, CIB, they are also issuing this NOCs through EDI system. So this is number one. Number two is in place of bonds. Suppose we need some bond, PD bond, ITC bond, other bonds at the time of assessment. So now the department has started accepting undertakings. On your letterhead, you can submit an undertaking and we will accept that. The bond will be taken after this COVID, this is over, say in the month of June or after that. So this is second. Number three, we have started provisional assessment where FTA certificates are not there, like country of origin certificate, SARC, SAFTA, different certificates we require. But if you have any unsigned certificate, if you have some form of document, so we will accept it and we will assess it provisionally. So this was number three. Number four, we have taken a special refund and drawback disposal drive. So instructions are issued by the board. See, related with the IGST, there was some error. Error number was SB005. So where the exporters were not getting IGST refund because of the mismatch of the invoice. Invoice in the GSTN is different. Invoice number given to the customs in EDI is different. So now we have started allowing this correction in the EDI system pertaining to the shipping bills up to 31st December 2019. So because of this, a lot of refunds and this drawback cases have been disposed of. Next, number five, government has allowed exemption to the equipments like ventilators, PPE equipments, masks, testing kits. This is also one step so that we can be will be equipped with these things. Next, number six is waiver of the late fee when bills of entries are filed because goods are arrived, but the importer is not able to file the bill of entry. So now we have we will not charge any late filing bill of entry charges. Next, number 7. You know the RFID sealing is there in the exports. This is, we call it e-seal, RFID seal. So one board circular was issued to cover the warehousing of the goods under this seal. But because of this COVID-19, this procedure has been deferred. So in case of warehousing, goods from port to warehouse, from warehouse to other warehouse will continue as usual without implementation of this RFID seal. Next, number 8, waiver of penalty, damage, detention, dwell time charges by port authorities, ICDs, CFS, custodian. This is basically a very disputed issue also. See, this comes under DG, Ministry of Shipping. DG Shipping issued circulars and instructions to the custodians, port authorities, and ICD, CFS shipping lines to not to charge such charges because of this lockdown. So, but I have seen this exporters or many other persons are complaining, said that the shipping lines and other CFSs, they are not waiving, they are still charging. So still there is a dispute not yet resolved. But basically, authorities, DG Shipping. Some CFSs are saying that they don't have any authority. So legally it is not correct, as the CFSs are working under the customs regulations, basically, that is customs area. So, but custom has also issued one board circular where they have been requested to waive these charges. But still there are many disputes. This has to be resolved by the concerned ministry or by our board. So next step I'll take, that the government has issued one ordinance also to relax the appeal time to file the returns. So this is also one of the steps. Next, we have started personal hearing through video conferencing. So board has issued one circular in the month of April, like in the matter of this appeal pending before commissioner appeal, or some adjudication is pending before any adjudicating authority, commissioner, joint commissioner, or DC. So that will continue, but the appellant or the concerned person has to request, yes, we accept this through video conferencing. So in that way, such matters may be disposed of. And the last one, we are already working 24/7. See, clearance in case of export and import. This is 24/7. Our laboratories are also working 24/7. And we have started one dedicated single window help desk through IceGate, so that the importers and exporters can raise their grievances. And we have appointed nodal officers in each zone at the level of joint or additional commissioner. If someone has any this grievance related with this export import cargo, he can approach the concerned nodal officer. So these are the issues which I have listed in short, which are taken by our department. So, and so this was all about. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. And if you have any query also, so I'll take up with that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. We will take a few questions for each of lot of questions. So, you, sir. The first question is the first question is, how can exporters benefit from eSanchit app on the customs department?
Yeah, I'm not able to actually.
Hello, Mr. Singh.
Your voice is not clear. It is some breakup is there. Can you repeat it?
Okay, sir. I will repeat the question. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the first question is, how can exporters benefit from the eSanchit app of the customs department?
Yes. eSanchit is basically a software where one can download any hard copy of the documents. So you need not to go to the customs office. You can download, you can put it along with the shipping bill or bill of entry. So in that way, all the certificates, documents, license, everything. So this is basically a faceless or without any human interference. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Another question is that one particular exporter, the participant has written that they have been added as a risky exporter at Nhava Sheva port after submitting all the documents. So, what is the procedure to remove their name from the list of risky exporter?
Yeah, basically this alert is issued by the RMD. We have one office in Churchgate office. Some feedback is coming from DRI and other investigating agencies. So there are some risk parameters which are put by the RMD section of the customs. So if there is by mistake, it happens sometimes by mistakes a particular IC is mentioned in that. So that person should approach the customs authorities, maybe Nhava Sheva or Bombay, and they will write to the RMD to remove this alert. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. One last question is that what are the benefits of authorized economic operation AEO status and how should an exporter apply for this?
Yes, very good question. Because earlier we had various types of schemes where like some uh, name were different, but this is basically a status holder like you have in DGFT various categories of the status holder. So if you will get this AEO benefit, so this is basically worldwide, not only in India. Your goods will not be examined, your this bank guarantee may not be required, you will be facilitated in the examination, physical examination, and these benefits will be given by other countries also all over the world. So in future this will be very useful, and not only the importer exporters, any other CFS operator, shipping line, any other person may also apply. So there is a procedure, so you can approach the concerned custom house, maybe in Nhava Sheva or in Bombay. So a public notice is also issued how to be registered as an AEO. So you have to apply, and based on your verification, you will be given this status. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. With this, now we will move to ECGC. We will move to Mr. Anand Singh. There are a few questions for ECGC. Uh, can ECGC provide the insurance cover for exporters whose goods are stranded in the destination ports?
I think the question is whether the cover will be there if the goods are stranded at the destination port, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If the policy cover is there, then the shipment, if it falls within the policy cover is available. But if the goods are stranded, the situation is still not clear in the question, whether the exporter wants to resell the goods or re-import the goods. So whatever steps he takes and whatever ultimate loss is there, that is covered under the policy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. The second question is, during the present lockdown situation, if the exporter is unable to send monthly declaration to ECGC on monthly basis, how to deal with this situation? Please guide.
Actually, if you go to our website, the website I have updated, it is ECGC Ltd Limited. If you go to that website, all these questions, FAQs are there, what to do. But in this specific case, if the exporter is unable to send the declaration, then they can, the time period has been extended, just for information. So they can do later on.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So what about the Nirvik scheme? Is it operational now?
No, the clearance has yet to come from the government. Once the government approves the scheme, then the operational guidelines will be finalized by our head office and passed on to the branches. So ultimately, we are expecting that scheme will be finalized, but due to this COVID situation, the delay is taking place.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you, sir. One last question is that do you have any special scheme for women entrepreneurs?
Women entrepreneurs as such scheme is not there, but in some states actually the premium rebates are there in some states, and that I think were there earlier also, but there's some due to some WTO guideline that has been removed. So presently I don't think there is any such scheme for women entrepreneurs. Because ultimately,
Okay.
in a policy cover that we are issuing, the cover is being issued on the buyer, default of the buyer.
Okay. Yeah, got it, sir. Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now move to Dr. Dabole from DGFT. Sir, the question is the exporters are eagerly awaiting the implementation timeline for the newly announced Export Incentive Scheme, RODTEP. Can you please
RODT.
share with, yeah, can you please share the timeline by when the rates for the scheme will be announced? Is there any information on that?
No, I'm afraid I do not have any. It is being final situation. We are working with skeletal strength, and same is happening in our office, New Delhi office, DGFT. So the work is under process. It is under progress. But if you are asking about timeline, I'm afraid I cannot give you any timeline at the present moment. And same is within the purview of our DGFT headquarters, not within the purview of my this Mumbai office. So I do not have a right now answer for that.
Okay. Okay. So one more question is if the exporter has received advance payment before
Hmm.
lockdown for export of mask production and the production started but could not export due to prohibition, what is the
Mhm.
procedure to export? Can it be allowed or it can't be allowed?
No, if it's a restricted item, see there are.
Hello, Dr. Dabole, yeah.
Are you able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir, sir, sir. If you can repeat once again, yeah. There was little break.
See, okay. If ITCHS code of the product is classified as a free, in that case you don't need permission. If item is restricted and you have received advance payment or irrevocable letter of credit, then you can definitely do export. But if item is prohibited, even after receiving advance, you cannot do the export. Hello.
Okay.
That is a
Yeah.
policy
So
provision.
I got it, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
So you mean to say, sir, the present status of policy is applicable to the export order, even if it is received before the export has been banned,
If item,
but
if export
yeah,
product
but
is
at present
prohibited by
it is yeah at present
export,
it is prohibited, then the same will continue,
yes,
right, sir?
yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, sir. And now we'll move to Mr. Angne. Mr. Angne, can you explain us what are the relief measures your organization has announced for exporters who are facing delay in payment from their foreign customers? Hello, Abhijit.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Abhijit, you are
Hello.
audible. If you can quickly answer now.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So the measures what we have provided right now, since as I mentioned that some of those buyers have almost have not defaulted but delayed their payments. Okay. So two things what we have done. Wherever buyer has asked for a claim, we have invoked that POA, and basis that insurance, we have recovered the payment from the buyer. If some of those cases buyer has suggested that there will be a delay in payment, we have elongated and given the moratorium period of at least 3 months. So that is another thing what we done. And the most important thing, as I said, that since our facilities on the export side is a without recourse facilities, even if the default is going to happen from the buyer, still nothing to worry, because anyways, if you have fulfill all your obligations under the contract, we can always go back to the insurance company and recover your principal amount.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And the one last question is that what is the cost of factoring in terms of percentage?
Yeah, so there are three costs basically. One is the interest rate cost, one is the factoring charges, and third one is the processing fees. On the export, yes, we are quite aggressive. Though it's unsecured, our interest rate stands around L plus 300 is the pricing for interest. Our factoring charges, there are three components in the factoring charges. On an average, we charge 0.5 to 0.6% factoring charges, which includes your live advisory, insurance charges, collection charges, and the ledger account charges. And there is third, which is a one-time charge, which is the processing fees, which is typically around 0.5% of the loan amount what we charge. These are the only charges. There are no hidden charges. There are no bill lodgement charges. There are no EBRC issuance charges. There are no nostro account charges. These are the only 3 charges which will be applicable if you do the export factoring with us. So basically, it
thank
is 1.5% higher than the bank, but the advantages are far different than what the bank is providing.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Abhijit. And I request you to you and Mr. Singh to share your presentation so that we can share with the participants. And with this, we close the question and answer session. And now, I would like to request Captain Somesh Batra to propose the vote of thanks. Yes, Captain Batra.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have all the participants as well as the speakers. I think it was very enlightening as well as informative session on various subjects, GC, as well as CCA and customs factoring. I think lots of things have been learned from exporters as well as importers' point of view. We are in circumstances where lot more disputes will come up because factories are closed and then importers cannot use their equipment, and the stuff which has come in, exporters cannot export. And similarly, I have learned that many of the buyers in Europe and other places have cancelled their orders because, for example, garments which were supposed to go for spring collection really will not reach them in spring, it will go. Similarly, the supply chain is quite a lot disturbed. However, I'm glad that all the offices and the arms of government and organizations are making a lot of effort to make life easy for everybody. So we are proud of our government, proud of our people, and with that, I'm sure we will get over this challenge very quickly. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation, and also thanks a lot for all the participants for listening very patiently. And Anil and your team, you've done a fantastic job. Keep it up and all the best, and have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And with this, we close this 8th webinar on the impact of COVID-19 on trade and industry. Once again, thank you very much, all the speakers and participants. And with this, we close the session.
Okay. Thank you very much.